tere, head ajakirjanik!
Good afternoon, dear journalists. I am very happy that this time we can hold a press conference in Estonian, also in German, and we have interpretation. I am also very glad that I can host my good colleague today here in Tallinn. She is the German Foreign Minister, Annalena. Baerbock, and we had a bilateral discussion which concerned the security situation in Europe. So we talked about what we could do to have a more secure situation for us and everyone in Europe. And I think it's also a follow-up meeting to one we had yesterday in Riga, together with the Latvian and Lithuanian foreign ministers. Germany is a very necessary ally and a partner and also a good friend for Estonia. Estonia is one of the biggest contributors to air policing in the Baltic states. We are highly grateful for this contribution. We also work together in NATO Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence, the Baltic Defense College, and we have a joint project whereby we help Ukraine with field hospitals. I do believe that what we do together today to protect Europe is very important, and it's also a good basis for further joint cooperation. The inhumane and unjustified war that Russia has waged against Ukraine has changed the way all our allies think of the defense capacity. I stressed today during our meeting that in this new security situation we must make NATO's defense operations more effective, more efficient, which includes strengthening the eastern wing. Estonia has therefore decided that during the next 4 years we will increase our defense budget to 2.5% of our GDP. It is equally important to provide all types of help to Ukraine that has been bravely fighting for almost 2 months now to protect the entire Europe and its security. 2 months. Ukraine needs our rapid assistance to strengthen its defense capability. To this end, Estonia has already contributed over 220 million euros. And of course, we are looking for new opportunities to help Ukraine. We have also provided humanitarian aid to Ukraine, which is worth more than 15 million euros. And nearly every third Estonian resident has contributed to helping Ukraine. We thank everyone for their contribution. More than 31,000 people fleeing Ukraine have now arrived in Estonia, and this number is approximately 2.5% of our entire population. It is clear that Ukraine must win this war. It must have a chance to restore its sovereignty, territorial integrity and independence. The war against Ukraine must become so costly Ukraine must become so costly for Russia that Russia would stop the war, and Estonia, European Union and the world all bear responsibility. We have now adopted 5 packages of sanctions in the European Union to influence Russia. And we are now working on the 6th package, and Estonia feels that the 6th package also must contain sanctions which concern energy carriers, both gas and oil. And we also think that we should carry on working with Ukrainian perspective to join the EU, because Ukraine is actually protecting our values, and thus we must protect the Ukrainian people so that they would understand they still have the European perspective regardless of the war that is ongoing. It is also clear that Europe must become independent in the field of energy. Estonia has a lot of coastline, and we can follow the example of Germany, which is the 2nd biggest wind energy producer in the world. We also think that Germany is a very important partner for us in the Baltic Sea, both in the wind energy sector and also in the hydrogen energy sector. I'm very glad that we discussed these issues today, and we also discussed our opportunities for further cooperation and potential formats which we could use in the future. I thank you again, Annalena, for being here in Estonia, and I now give floor to you so that you could address us.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for the warm welcoming. Liebe Eva-Maria, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, nach unserem gestrigen Treffen in Riga ist es mir heute eine Freude, bei dir hier.
Dear Evelina, Following our yesterday's meeting in Riga, I'm very glad that I can be here today in Tallinn. Really, Estonia and Germany have close cooperation, and this cooperation has historical roots because there were Germans in the Baltics who arrived here in the 13th century and only left before the Second World War. And also we have the Hanseatic League, which means that there is there has always been close cooperation in the field of trade between Estonia and Germany. Today we also said that we want to further enhance our cooperation in the field of green energy in the Baltic Sea, because this is a very prospective area. And even today, Estonians have a lot of interest in the German culture and the German language. We want to keep up this interest, this mutual interest, because it forms the basis for our friendship and our cooperation. I am therefore very glad that I will have the chance to meet some students in Tallinn who study German at a school in Tallinn, which specializes in teaching German language, and which also has ties with another school in Germany, which I have also visited by chance. So I'm very glad about this cooperation. The twinning projects between schools are being bridge makers between the two nations, because when young people cooperate, this becomes a very good protective shield against nationalism, fake news, and everything else. We do know about the Russian propaganda and the aggression that Russia is trying to exert also on the Baltic states, trying to separate people, to divide people in the Baltics. We must fight against this. And we commonly believe that we will not allow Russia to succeed. We will fight jointly against Russian aspirations, especially in the field of media. Already since 2016, we have cooperated in the field of fake news to fight against the fake news and to promote our common understanding and common values. And there are a number of projects, some of them very small-scale ones, but still they are the building blocks which together make up a larger block. We have critical discourses, we have projects which help us become more self-aware of what is happening and which help us build up values. For example, we have photo cafeterias and other projects in Narva, which is a town on the border of Estonia and Russia. And we also have workshops for young people, which help young people learn to understand what fake news are. This morning I was in Riga and I talked to people from the civil society who are working on a civil society initiative. From one hand, I think it's entirely possible that societies consist of different ethnic groups. But on the other hand, it's also important to understand that when people are scared or confused, this confusion or fear might come down to a specific biography of the specific person. There are young people who have trouble talking to other young people from different groups, and we try to help them overcome these difficulties and give our contribution to better communication between young people. And better communication also means listening more to what other people are saying. Of course, we need time to achieve these objectives, but nevertheless, such work makes our societies more resilient. It makes our societies stronger. The fact that young Russian-speaking people are protesting against the Putinist regime and the the abhorrent cruelties of Putin means that our work has been fruitful, because young Russian-speaking people are capable of recognizing the lies of the Russian propaganda. We have a strong team when we think about reacting against the Russian propaganda machine. We have done so jointly, and we are now we have also jointly adopted the sanctions, and we are preparing another package of sanctions. We will not give in before Putin finally stops and withdraws his troops from Ukraine. Brussels is working on the next wave of sanctions. As I have already said, we will be exerting more economic pressure on the war machine that Russia operates, and we will also do our utmost to support Ukraine with weapons and other things they need. It is clear to everyone that the Ukrainian soldiers are also protecting our values and our peace and security. This is especially felt in the Baltic region. And yeah, Eva-Maria, ladies and gentlemen, I want to be very clear when I say the following. After Russia launched the war against Ukraine, we have a new understanding of what needs to be done to make Europe a secure place. We have a redefined understanding of security. We have to have better defense. We stand with you because the Russian threat is a real threat. Nobody is trying to close their eyes. Nobody could do so. Germany, as a NATO partner, will be contributing more to the security of the alliance in the future. And I would like to stress at this point that Article 5 is valid without any ifs or buts. Article 5 is always valid. Two weeks ago, there was a summit, and as we said there, Article 5 is valid. You can rely on Article 5. When thinking about our future is always intertwined with our past, with our memories, and therefore we will be visiting a memorial of those who fell victim to the communism, the 75,000 Estonians who perished during the 51 years of Russian occupation, Soviet occupation. The interpreter apologizes. These people were murdered or deported, and this serves as an example, as a very warning example also against Putin. We don't want to have communism or totalitarianism, and I feel very much honored that I will be able to visit this memorial today. It also has to do with our biography. And it serves our common interests and our common future. So now you can ask questions, and I will give the microphone to those putting the questions. Thank you.
I would like to clarify a bit the position of German government on weapons delivery. It hasn't been too clear. Estonia, although small country, has been one of the most outstanding supplier of weapons for Ukraine. Fortunately, we hear more and more promises from Germany, but when it comes to deeds, there seems to be a certain amount of hesitancy and lack of will. Can I ask, will Ukrainians get Marder vehicles and Leopard tanks they are asking for and German industry has?
Yes, we are providing for more deliveries, but as in your country as well, for us it was really important to deliver everything which was there from the first day on very quickly. And so we have delivered Stinger and trailers and other materials in the first days, which we had in our own stocks. Currently, and as I've learned, this is a similar situation here. When we're looking at our stocks, military is saying that we can deliver immediately not the things which they need in Ukraine, and therefore we have set up, the Defense Ministry has set up a list with industry, what we can deliver from industry. We are providing also financial support for these deliveries with regard to industry, what they need, especially in eastern Ukraine, to defend themselves with regard to Russian artillery invasion there. Secondly, we are supporting our partners with regard to maintenance and also with regard to training, what they can deliver now, what we at the moment cannot deliver ourselves. I have underlined yesterday that there are no taboos for us with regard to armed vehicles and other weaponry which they are needing. That's why we are supporting other partners in a circle of exchange, Ringtausch in German, to see that those partners who are delivering right now out of their stocks, that we will fill the gaps because they can deliver Soviet materials where training is not needed currently. And thirdly, we have decided, and we will bring this in another form of our budget, 1 billion extra for supporting military equipment for Ukraine, especially for advanced systems, which have to be provided and have to be delivered in the upcoming months, where we also need training. These are more modern systems where we need training, but we are providing 1 million euros because I think we should not only think for the next days and next months, but also the next years coming ahead for the systems they need for their defense, but also for securing to have a free Ukraine in the future.
Vielen Dank, but what about Leopard tanks and Marder vehicles? Will they go to Ukraine?
So what was it? Tanks and?
Leopard tanks and Marder armored vehicles.
With regard to the Marder tanks, we have seen what we do have in the stocks, and our military has said that currently they just don't work from the scratch. So therefore we presented to Ukraine what we would need for maintenance and also what we would need for munition. So we see what extra maintenance work would be needed to that they can actually be used on the ground. And the thing with modern tanks like Leo tanks is the question of training, and as I've said before, we are preparing these kind of things that we can train together with partners for more modern systems.
Aitäh. Järgmine küsimus. Yes.
Next question.
Does it work? Yeah, okay. Grete Põlluste from Delfi.
Grete Põlluste, Delfi.
A question revolving around the heavy arms given by Germany has been somewhat controversial, and I'm just wondering, don't you consider it as a problem for a country, giving mixed messages? How can you be reliable as an ally?
Well, if there are mixed messages, I'm here to explain what we are doing. Unfortunately, life is always very complex, and especially in this kind of situation where we see these horrible pictures from Bucha, from Mariupol, where we all have this feeling we have to do something immediately. This is why we try to do from the first day on to deliver what we could deliver. We have in the past not invested so much money as others have done in their own army. That's why we have in different parts of our army not full stocks. This counts also for helicopters. For example, I've been just to Africa, where we highly need helicopters for the future UN missions, and there we face the same problem as Germans, that we do not have enough helicopters. So we have to look how we can fill these gaps also for other missions, and this counts also with regard to other parts of our army, that things we would like to deliver, we cannot deliver immediately. And this is why we are trying to explain what our challenges are we have to face, but definitely, and this is also sometimes hard for politicians if you really want to do something, but then reality is different, that you can say, well, the maintenance doesn't work with the finger snips because it's more complex, that we have to provide everything, think out of the box, how we can prepare things that maintenance will work more quickly in the future. And I think we have taken a good step, even though we know that every day counts, to work closer with our partners. 2 weeks ago in Brussels at the NATO meeting, where we agreed that we have to combine our capabilities better. If one country has munitions, other countries do have the tanks, and the third country can provide the training, that we have to combine the three factors all together. And this is what I've underlined yesterday already in Riga, and this is also what my Chancellor has underlined, that we are doing this combination of support right now, bringing together the delivery of heavy weapons with the training, with the maintenance between the different allies and partners.
Thank you. Yes, question.
Ja, vielen Dank, Alexander Ratz von Reuters. Eine Frage an beide Ministerinnen, wenn ich darf, zur Lage in Mariupol. Frau Ministerin Baerbock, Sie haben es angesprochen.
I have a question to both ministers. Probably the dramatic situation which is now unfolding in Ukraine, it can not become any more dramatic given how bad it is now. There is a very large number of people who need to be evacuated from Ukraine. Are there any attempts at the international level to achieve some kind of agreement with Moscow to be able to evacuate these people who actually very rapidly need help? Yes, the situation is really tragic, it is dramatic, and it's also brutal. The war is brutal. It's being waged in a very brutal manner against the civilians. It is really a very bloody war. And the humanitarian corridors to evacuate civilians have been dysfunctioning for a long time. It's not a new problem. It's been a problem from the beginning. Together with the Russian leadership, we have been trying to talk about this issue, to convince the Russians that there must be a humanitarian corridor which can be used for the actual evacuation which people urgently need. Russia has given us promises, but unfortunately, life has shown that these promises do not hold true. And we have tried to work together with the International Red Cross Committee to mitigate the situation. But the people who are under fire, who are being bombed as they evacuate, for these people, the reality is really very grim. Unfortunately, the solution lies in the hands of Putin. How peaceful people could be protected, he just should stop bombing them. Thank you for this question. It is true. It is very painful for everyone to watch what the Russian regime is doing to the civilians, how they are bombing and killing civilians and raping women, girls and children, how they are raping and torturing people. It's a part of what happens in Ukraine every day. We know this because Ukrainians have liberated some regions in Ukraine. Even this morning we heard about new mass graves which have been newly discovered in Ukraine, and I think these horrific details will unfortunately be seen by us for a long time. On the international level, of course, Estonia and Germany and other countries have tried their utmost to secure the humanitarian corridors for the evacuation. And the UN Council has adopted a resolution by 140 countries it is clear that Russia has abused its position in the UN and has vetoed any resolution which would be binding upon Russia. But on the other hand, we have also seen that Russia has breached international law in every way possible. So even if there was a binding resolution by UN, it would not help save people. It's also very important that all people who have committed the atrocities in Ukraine, the Russians who have committed the atrocities, they must be held accountable. We didn't speak about this at length today, but both countries, both Estonia and Germany, they support the activities of the International Criminal Court, and Estonia has also proposed some experts from Estonia, from our Chief Prosecutor's Office, to work for the Criminal Court so that they could quickly prosecute the war crimes in Ukraine, and those who have committed the crimes would be then rapidly taken into custody, that they would be prosecuted. And of course, we want to achieve some international support to help people who are still under the siege, still in the occupied areas which are being bombed, so that these people could either leave this area or some other way restore a humane way of staying alive. And we have approached both President Zelensky and President Putin with the same question. Thank you. Unfortunately, this is the last question for which we have time.
Ministerin Baerbock, unter der russischsprachigen Minderheit in Deutschland.
Thank you very much. I would like to address this question to Minister Baerbock. The war that is happening in Ukraine, unfortunately, also has some supporters. And some of these supporters have voiced their opinions in German towns, in German cities. In this context, have you done anything? And Minister Liimets, I would like to ask you the following. The Russian propaganda, does it have anything to do with the social peace we want to achieve on the territory of Estonia? Yes, says Minister Baerbock. I think it's one of the most important issues I have been asked about. The disinformation campaigns, which are massive. They do reach different places, including Germany, and especially German cities which have a large Russian population or large Russian communities. But I think it's important to stress at this point that it's exactly at such times where the Russian propaganda is trying to divide our societies. We must not think that all Russians are the same. But instead, we should understand that all communities comprise very different people with different backgrounds. And therefore, in such situations, we must react appropriately. I would also like to stress that counter-propaganda might not be effective. However, transparency is very important. Media must be transparent, and we can learn something from the Baltic states in this issue. We should also understand that there is not one solution that fits everybody, but we should cooperate not only with the media channels, but also with local, regional channels. And when Russia restricts access to internet, then we should think of something else that could be given to Russia via YouTube or some other channel, because we must be able to communicate our pluralistic views to them so that they could find different interpretations, different information. The initiative to which I referred earlier, the citizen initiative, the civic society initiative, which we discussed in Latvia, shows us that we are on a journey where the narrative into which we have believed for a long time has finally resulted in the war. So we need to understand better the functioning of fake news and the Russian propaganda machines. Germany thinks it is very important to use the cyber competence of NATO and to support the NATO Cyber Defense Center of Excellence and to cooperate with this center. And we think that the German Foreign Ministry should also work on such initiatives abroad. Because people should have more critical thinking, and we must help them develop critical thinking and critical understanding of information. Again, the Baltic states have taken a lead in this area, and I want to communicate your example to my home country. Thank you. Yes, it is a very important issue given the fact that we have war in Ukraine, and we have seen during this war how the Russian Federation is making use of the fake news it produces itself in order to have some justification to launch this unjustified war against Ukraine. And they are still killing innocent people and still making use of fake news. Right to life is a universal human right, and of course this right has been violated and breached in Ukraine. And Russia has been spreading fake news for a very long time, and Estonia knows this very well. I'm glad that this issue has also been debated on the European level, because the European Union also has a disinformation center which is monitoring the development of fake news and is providing feedback to the member states. I think it's also very important that we adopted a sanction package by which Russian Today and Sputnik were prohibited. They cannot be disseminated in the member states anymore. This, I think, helps to cut the dissemination or at least the speed of disseminating fake news by Russia. Of course, we need to take new steps so that Russia would not be able to make use of its propaganda machine to justify what it's doing. Because I think that the majority of Europe is against the war. We understand the war in the same way. Russia has launched the war against Ukraine, violating all principles and foundations of the international law. This is what they have done. But it's also our responsibility to make everyone in the UN understand this, because the Russian propaganda is very good and it does reach places. When thinking of Estonia, then yes, 28% of the Estonian population are Russian-speaking, and of course some of these people, this Russian-speaking population is turning to the Russian channel to get information, and therefore the sanction by which the Russian Today and Sputnik can no longer be accessed in the European Union is very important for Estonia. But it's regrettable that Russia actually doesn't have any alternative channels. There is no free media in Russia. Therefore, Russian people cannot get fair information on what is happening in Ukraine about the war. I'm very glad that yesterday, when we were in Riga, we also adopted a declaration to support the civil society in Russia and the free journalists who still remain in Russia, because very often they are subject to attacks. For example, Muratov, who is a Nobel Prize winner, or another journalist who was detained in Karamurza. So we must protect the people who are still free in their thinking and who are subject to repercussions, which of course is regrettable. Thank you. Thank you. And this concludes our press conference. Thank you to everyone who participated.